Hello everyone, and welcome to Underscores. In case you missed the recent update, we are no longer only talking to people with video game experience, but branching out to music as well. Today we have our first guest musician whose music you might recognize, as it's his song Slingshot that I've used for the intro and outro for most of my episodes. That's right, our guest is Doerksen, a synthwave artist from Canada. He's released 12 albums, 2 EPs, and 6 singles since 2021, and is probably most well known by his music that appears on the YouTuber Summoning Salts videos. Thanks for joining us.
Hey Sam, thanks for having me. It's really great to be on the show.
So, to start off, could you tell us when you started making music?
Sure. So, I guess the full story is, let's see now, I am 27 years old, so, I've been musical most of my life. Not that I'm, incredibly talented or anything, but, growing up I was, I sang a lot, I was playing drums, I was doing clarinet in high school. But electronic music, I didn't really start until I graduated high school in 2015. I got a laptop as part of my graduation present as I was going into university. So it was something that I did kind of just for fun. I was messing around on GarageBand. I had done that growing up as well, in middle school, high school, but just kind of on school computers or whatever. Having my own laptop, I started to do lots of just instrumental ideas. I didn't really know that I wanted to do electronic music per se, but that's kind of one of the easier genres to get into and have it sound semi-professional just from a laptop music making perspective. I didn't have a crazy mic setup for acoustic guitar or piano or whatever. So basically I've been doing it maybe 8 or 9 years now, give or take. Obviously it's kind of just a hobby for me, but I've been doing it that long, and probably tried to start doing it a little more seriously maybe 6-7 years ago, because I got involved with Summoning Salt. But that's probably longer than you wanted, but
Oh no, it's perfectly fine. How did you get in contact with Summoning Salt?
Well, that was a kind of a surreal moment for me. I remember I don't know how I discovered him. It was probably his most popular video, which is I think Mario Kart Wii short one. I think that one has 8 million views or something like that. So I think I found that video, started watching it, basically got sucked into the rabbit hole of his. I do that a lot, where I discover a YouTube channel that I really like, and then I basically try to watch all of their biggest videos, or all the ones that appeal to me, and the next couple of weeks, that's all I'm gonna watch probably. And then how I got involved with him was I followed him on Twitter, and he was nice enough to he just put out a general inquiry on Twitter. Probably it was late December or early December of I can't remember now, maybe 2019. I feel like it was right before COVID. And he was he said this a few times where he says, I'm just looking for new songs to use, new artists, blah, blah. And again, he wants to switch up his style as much as we all love the home music that is most popular from his videos. I think he probably wants to change it up for his own sake too. And I had, I had been working on stuff, but kind of, again, just I think I posted it on SoundCloud. I hadn't put anything on streaming services. I wasn't really looking to do it for financial gain. It was all just for fun. And there was one song that I was maybe he would like this. So I ended up posting one of my demos from SoundCloud. Just I tweeted it to him as a link or whatever. I can send it to you at the end so you can see which one it is. It's one of the more popular songs, I think, for my account, because it is just called Summoning Salt. So it's one of my oldest songs, but it's pretty short and sweet. And he replied to it saying, I really like it. I can't remember how exactly it all happened, but I think we both then followed. I followed him already for sure, but he followed me. We responded a little, we just kind of messaged back and forth, so I could send him the proper version of the song, probably through a Google Drive or something. And then I was fortunate enough to just he's been really good to me, where I kind of asked him at that time, hey, in the future when I have new music available, can I send it to you either when it's ready or even when it's done early, just to kind of get his take on it? Because definitely I do try to make music now sometimes with him in mind, because it's great when I can write a song and kind of feel like it might fit in a video, and then he finds a way to slot it in. Yeah, so then from there we kind of just started messaging on Discord. Probably, I think we messaged on Twitter probably for like a year, and then I didn't really have Discord, or if I did, I'd never used it. So I started using it a little more just because of some of the people that I'm friends with, and we messaged on there, and now we don't talk like every day or anything, not even every week, but like we message probably every other month just about music and stuff. I'll send him new stuff. So yeah.
Would you say that, like, you said working with Summoning Salt kind of changed some of the way that you made music. Do you think you would still have made the same amount of music if it weren't for, like, the connection you have with him?
That's a good question, and I think it is definitely something that I've thought about a lot, where it's like I don't think that I would make nearly as much music had it not been for starting to work with him, and not because I'm trying to make every song like kind of a Summoning Salt video song or whatever, but I think it just increased my drive to produce music because I wanted to like get more projects out there, and like, I want to do, when I release an album, like I usually like there to be 3 or 4 songs where I'm like, oh yeah, this was definitely kind of meant for a Summoning Salt video. And it's interesting because he's been it's been a good process of, sometimes I send him songs and I'm like sure that they're gonna fit. I'm like, oh, like this will sound really good in a video, blah blah. And then he'll respond and he'll be like, you know what, I like it, but it doesn't really sound good for a video, or like in his mind it doesn't fit. And so it's definitely almost given me a bit of like competition with myself, where if he doesn't like that one, I'm like, okay, well then let me write another one where he will like it. And so definitely it's increased my output, because sometimes I am just like almost like with myself internally being like, okay, well, if he doesn't like this one, then I'll write another one that he will like. So I've probably written more songs out of that than I would have normally. And yeah, like it's been interesting. The last couple of years, I've really thought about it a lot, because I do feel, and I mean, this is kind of a separate point, but there is actually a part of me that thinks that creatively I've run a little dry maybe with the last couple albums, because I've let that aspect take over my music my music making brain, and I think I've like maybe been a little bit too focused on like not clout chasing, but trying to like appease him and then get it in a video and have it be a big song for me or whatever. When I think probably the ones that he's liked the most and used and that have like gotten the most popular are probably ones that I've made almost just like on a whim, and not purely out of that desire to like write a hit song that he's gonna like, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. So, yeah, it's a bit of a, it's a dilemma, like, it's...
Totally.
Like, I know I never would have found your music if it weren't for, because I'm a huge Summoning Salt fan, but like...
Of course.
And I really do like your music outside of the videos, but I never would have found it. So it's like, do you try to make one type of song that will appeal to this larger audience, or do you, branch out and, it doesn't fit quite as well?
Exactly, yeah. And I mean, I think that's, and the other thing too, like kind of in tandem with that, is that also there is like a small financial element too, where it's like, now that I get streams from Spotify, Apple Music, all this stuff, like people stream my music, which I'm so grateful for, but it does create this little thing in the back of my head where it's like, well, like, I mean, I don't make like much money a month from any of this or whatever. I'm never going to quit my day job, and I'm totally okay with that. But there definitely is like a part of me where it's like, well, like this month I made, this much money with streams, and then this month I made this much. And so like part of me is like, well, if I could write the perfect Summoning Salt song that he uses at this, it's such and such part of a video, then that'll blow up and I'll make more money. And it really should not be about money, but I think the last couple of years that has definitely become more of a factor to me, where I am like, shoot, like, am I really writing this because I'm inspired, or am I writing this because I want to try to see some success and like make more money, which is not a good way to look at it. And I think that the last like 6 months I have kind of changed my outlook on that. We can talk about that later, but it is like something that I've had to kind of reconcile with, because I want it to be for fun and not for like a mini career or whatever, if that makes sense.
So it is interesting because like for doing something for just for fun, as a hobby for the main reason anyway, like you make a lot of music. You released 3 albums last year. Like that is unheard of for like people who make music full time. So
Yeah.
how on earth do you like make that much material while also working full time?
That's a great question. And I mean, like, part of it is, I mean, if you look at my output this year, like, I think I put out my album Gradients, what was it, in April or May, something like that. And since then, like, I mean, it's kind of answering your question with a different answer, but definitely this year, like, I'm going to probably put out one more album later in the year. I don't know when. I mean, maybe September or October. But like it'll only be 2 this year, and then like I feel like less and less. What was changing is like there were some albums where I'd finish, like I think with like the Parallax albums, I would finish them and I'd have like 4 or 5 ideas for the next album already kind of like brewing, and I was like, oh, like it just kind of felt like I always had like some idea to go off of and like do, and I think that doing that for a couple of years was great, but it did kind of like I can't keep that pace up. You know what I mean? Like it's definitely is something that I did for a couple years, and too, like it's also like I don't want to burn myself out creatively. I do feel like self-sabotage myself, but I'm going to my music here so I can look at my albums. I do feel like the Parallax era where it was like those 3 albums, and then even like maybe Breather from 2022 and like the Astral Exhibit, like those are all stuff that I'm really proud of, and I do feel like the next couple albums after that, which Gradients, and there's Distance as well. I feel like, and even the one before that too. I feel like those were starting to like get a little more like stretched thin for ideas, where it's like it wasn't coming quite as easily, and I was maybe a little more unhappy with them, like putting them out, because I liked the ideas, but I felt like I was not truly maybe seeing those ideas to their full conclusion, where it's like with some of the stuff like on Parallax and like Super Parallax, Ultra Parallax and stuff, those ones I'm a little more proud of. Like there's some songs on those albums where I go back and I'm like, dang, I'm really, really happy with those. And then maybe it's just recency, like a negative recency bias, but I go to like Distance, for example, which was put out in I think like September or like late last year, and there's like only a few songs that I'm looking at right now and I'm like, oh yeah, those ones I'm like equally as proud of. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think it does. I mean, when you like doing something creatively enough, you're gonna do a lot of that, and then like I always like to say, you will always be your harshest critic. Like
yeah,
and that's doubly true when you're constantly making things, like whether it's music or whether it's art or game design. Like you make enough of something and you're just gonna start being pretty harsh.
It was like not, yeah, I think I almost like oversaturated myself with making music, and like now maybe I just feel a little less like, not positive, but I think like the more recent stuff, I just look back at it and I'm like, oh, I feel like I was just doing this to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What would you say, like, out of those, do you have like a favorite album?
Favorite album? That's a great question. I mean, it's I think one of the ones I really like, I don't think it's like my favorite, but I did 2 like early in 2021, I did like kind of 2 EPs. I did like the Brighter Colors and Darker Colors ones. And those were really fun. I don't know if they're like my best work or anything, but Darker Colors and then even Step by Step, which came out later in 2021, I really like both of those because those were born purely out of collaboration with another YouTuber. I did kind of some soundtrack work for this artist. I believe her YouTube channel is called Codex Entry, and her name is Ruby Seals, and so she was doing these videos on a game called Pathologic. I don't know, Sam, if you've heard of this game, maybe?
No, I haven't.
there's an incredible H Bomber Guy video on the game. If you at all, do you know H Bomber Guy? Maybe.
No.
Definitely great like commentary YouTuber to check out. He's done really cool stuff on like just like social stuff, but he's also done really cool video game like essay work and stuff. But anyway, so like it was this game. It's this game that's like very kind of abstract and weird and like kind of dark. And so Ruby was doing this big production, like this like 4-hour mega video on the game. And it was really artistic, really experimental. I really loved it. And we had kind of emailed because she was actually doing editing work for a YouTuber, and she was doing a Summoning Salt like kind of parody video where it was like kind of like, you know, aping that style on purpose. And so she was wanting to use some of my music, and I was like, yeah, go for it. And then I don't know how we ended up chatting, but then when she started work on this thing for her own channel, I was like super eager to like, branch out. And I think what I like about them is that like they both are very uncommercial compared to the other things. Like if you listen to Step by Step and Darker Colors, like they almost sound like they're from a different artist. I don't know if you have.
No, I definitely have. Like, which one? I think it's the Polyhedron from.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that piece. Like.
Yeah. Oh.
I definitely got the vibe from those albums that like those are darker. They aren't the usual, you know, cheery synthwave Doerksen music. And like like if I become a game developer and make like a horror game or something, I'm definitely hitting you up and saying, "Yo, can I use that?" Because like that.
Sure,
I love. It just
totally.
feels. It's really cool. It's cool, and that's interesting to know that you. So you made that for that video, or was it?
Yeah, like I kind of made them like kind of just like, and I don't really like. The funny thing is, I don't even think she used most of it because she was using like the game soundtrack, or she was using. Like she had like a lot of voice actors involved, so there was a lot of scenes where it was just like people talking with no music. But like we just like it wasn't paid or anything. Like we just kind of texted about it, and like I think I just got really into the idea of doing these like projects, and I think I really liked it because it felt so unique to me and my sound, and I really liked doing something different. And I think like the Polyhedron, yeah, that's probably one of the slightly more like. Traditional songs, like obviously Summoning Salt has used that one a few times, but like most of the other songs on this album, and especially I would say the like Step by Step especially, is like almost even more like kind of bizarre. Like I'm trying to like if I was like the song Watch Your Back from Step by Step is like so alien compared to anything else I've ever done, and I almost wish I could do more stuff like that, but I don't know, I never kind of went back to it. The only thing I would say is similar in tone and not as experimental, but like a little more like downtrodden was some of the stuff on Looking for Light, which was like kind of early 2023. I think it was like March or April, maybe even May. Some of this stuff I wrote coming fresh off of a really not traumatic, but I had a pretty serious breakup happen at that time, early in 2023, and it was like really hard for me to like keep making music for a while. I mean, I put out 3 albums last year, so maybe I'm lying, but it was definitely really tough for me to like do it with the same cheery attitude. So I do feel like some of the songs on here are a little more downtrodden. I mean, and saying that too, like RPG Store interlude is on Looking for Light, which is maybe like my cheeriest song ever. But also like the ancient history tracks are both pretty depressing, and I think like Looking for Light itself is kind of a down, like that's the title track, and it's like probably one of the more down songs on the album. So definitely like I like some of those aspects about these projects because they're a little more like they're not just me doing my usual stuff. They're like me going through something and like it's a little more obvious in the art, which I do like. Even same with Distance. There's some stuff like 2018, like Family Dinner, Why Don't You Play With Us? Like some of those songs I know like I have like specific emotional connections to, whereas like some songs like I would say honestly like Gradient. I mean, I probably shouldn't say this because it's my most recent album, but it's probably the one I'm like least connected to emotionally. and I still really like some of the songs on here. And I mean, I'm still proud of it. Like, it's not like I hate any song. But I do feel like it's probably the one that I was like the most like just like I should put out an album. It's been a while. I don't really like have any one song on here that I'm like super duper duper in love with, except for the song track number 7, GWNSCB, which does have a full length title. I can tell you if you really want, but that's probably the one I'm most proud of because it's very weird, and it's like kind of angry. It's kind of like dirty and like distorted compared to the rest of the album, and I really like that about it. But yeah, sorry, I'm just kind of rambling. You're probably just waiting to talk.
No, it's fine. Rambling is what makes a good podcast. So, kind of getting into the thick of it. What is your actual like process of making a song? Like, how does it go from a concept to a finished product?
Good question. It's really dependent on the song. I mean, sometimes I think that part of the reason why my output has kind of changed and I've maybe felt a little less connected to it lately is because I think that sometimes I need to give myself more time to sit with an idea and like really bring it to fruition. I think with a lot of the earlier albums, I like had all these musical ideas in my head. I would like come to the computer ready to like play them out, and then they would just like expand from there. Whereas like I feel like lately there's less of that, and I've had to like maybe like just purposefully sit down and like I think the songs that I'm writing now are like just as musical in terms of like some of their composition and like the instruments they use and all this stuff, but I think I have to be more intentional about setting aside time. I feel like I've been a little more busy in just my life lately, and it's all for good reasons. Like I work full time, I work sometimes overtime, I'm like involved with my family, like I see them all the time. I have a couple friend groups. I'm in a band here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, where we do stuff. Like I'm playing gigs next month with them. So like I lead a band and I'm a lead singer, and so
awesome.
yeah, I can if you're really interested, I can send you some of our demos, and it's totally different than any of this. Like I'm singing and like I play keyboard in that, and like my friends all play instruments, but so that has been kind of the last like year and a bit. We started doing that.
What's your band called?
Basically, like, and the band is called Little Mountains.
Little Mountains.
And I'll send you we have like a little band camp I can send you. It's like, yeah, that's a really, really great project that I'm involved with because it's like 3 of my childhood best friends, and we've been in a band like basically since we were in middle school. And I actually played drums in that band, and we like did covers. We like did a few originals, but nothing really too serious. And then when I had this big breakup last year in February, basically like a month or so after that, I just like started writing all these songs with lyrics and like playing keys and not like my traditional music. And one of my friends in the band, he's like a pretty incredible like jazz musician, and so I brought a lot of these songs either finished or unfinished to him, and then we kind of started fleshing them out. And then my other 2 friends who are also very skilled musicians, I kind of brought them in, and then the 4 of us decided to like kind of restart the band as like a new project with a new name. And I was going to be the lead singer and play keys, and so kind of a different direction. So we did that. But anyway, sorry, going back to my music. I guess it really depends. Like I find that lately, like I just sit down and I will either like have a riff or like kind of an idea in my head, or I will like honestly just pull up a bunch of like preset instrument sounds from Logic, which is what I use. I wish I used Ableton. It seems like a lot of the pros use Ableton, but I'm just too stupid to figure it out. I just pull up like all these sounds, like either like an electric piano sound or a synth or a drum or anything. And I just kind of end up like fiddling around until maybe something really clicks for me. And so then once I kind of get an idea, like honestly, it's sometimes just as simple as like I figure out like a little like motif that I like. I'll either a little like riff or like an arpeggio, like the song "We Made It," which is like one of my biggest songs. Like that was just me playing with like a synthesizer and like doing an arpeggio on that, and then I just kind of ended up following a really simple chord progression and then building that with like a drum and a pad underneath. I'm trying to think what else. Like even the Summoning Salt song that was like super popular. That song is really simple. It's like just like a drum machine and a little electric piano part, like the that part. Yeah, so it really just depends on kind of what idea I have in my head, or sometimes it is just a matter of like making time, sitting down, and kind of like banging out like just like on the piano until I find something that really sticks with me. And I think that's why my attitude towards the music has like slightly changed over the years, because I do feel like now I have to like set aside time instead of just showing up and being instantly inspired, which is like, I don't know if that's how it always was or if it's just like rose tinted glasses, and maybe a couple years ago it was too dissimilar to how it is now, but maybe back then it was so exciting because, oh, Summoning Salt's using my music, I'm getting these streams, I'm getting these follows, blah blah blah. But I have found with like the new songs that I'm composing for my new album, which will come out sometime this fall, like it's been a little more like I really like all these songs, and I'm probably more proud of them than I am of like any of my last couple albums. But it is a lot more like, okay, I have like these hours off today. I'm gonna try to at least for one of them sit down and like work on stuff. And once I get an idea going and I'm expanding it, then I'm really passionate about it. But sometimes it is like I have to make the time, sit down, or else it will be like kind of just fruitless. Like sometimes I make myself upset because I will like come over to my computer 10 minutes before I have to go to work, and I like pull up the most recent song I'm working on, and I like kind of start fiddling, and I'm like, oh, actually, I'm kind of like feeling this one part here, or I'm like, oh, I want to try this, but then it's like I should have given myself more time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you like have musical experience outside of just like music production software? Like you've played instruments before?
For sure, yeah. I grew up playing keyboard, or piano. I took piano lessons for like 10 years. And then I played drums in like my friends and I's rock band. I played clarinet, phone. And then I started singing a lot, kind of in middle school, high school, and like choir programs and like school musical stuff. And then even today, like I attend a church out here, and I sing at the church. So like I'm doing a lot of singing. Like I probably once a month am like doing that. So like, yeah, I'm still singing all the time and like playing keys at home or in the band. Yeah, so always been like musical growing up. I considered doing it like as a career. Like I had my high school jazz band teacher really wanted me to pursue doing saxophone at like university as like a full-on jazz degree because he thought that I could do it, which is very nice of him. But I said I would like to have a stable career and be able to make a living. So I decided against that. And my best friend decided to pursue that. So if he ever hears this, know that I hope he knows that I love him and that I support him. But I just, for me, it was like a financial decision where I was like, I'm not going to be comfortable living like kind of day-to-day, paycheck to paycheck. So I decided to pursue nursing, which is what I ended up doing.
So, just a small thing. That's awesome that you sing for your church every once in a while, because I play drums in the worship band at my church, and that's just an awesome experience.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well we got to collab then, I guess. Eh?
Yeah. It's just a lot of fun being able to play for God, really. But anyway, so you can play some instruments outside of just making it in software. So do you ever like record yourself playing an instrument and then lay that on top of the electronic stuff?
Well, kind of. So basically, actually, I think if I go back, let me see. Here, if I go back to, is it Parallax that has? No. So basically, like honestly, until which album has We Made It? I think that might be Ultra Parallax 2022. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure like around this time, 2022, I like basically only ever used the preset stuff Logic for my music creation. So it was just like, yeah, like I'm just like using the preset stuff, and like it's all like drum machines, and like the quote unquote real drums you're hearing in some of these songs are like just presets that like it's recorded drums into Logic. So it's all like MIDI, like if that makes sense. I don't know if that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was all this like preset stuff that I was happy to use, but I was kind of like, I want to like try to maybe get into a little more like authentic, because I do feel like I will never probably truly be like a like a synth wave like expert where I'm like, oh yeah, like I like this synth, blah blah blah, this synth. And so I decided in 2022 to buy like an actual analog synthesizer. I bought a Korg Mini Look. I'm looking at it right now, which was this cute little like, I don't know. Well, these things are all so expensive. I don't know if you've ever looked into it, but it was like, oh, I want to buy this little synthesizer, and it was like, oh yeah, it's $700, and I was like, okay, geez. So ended up buying one of those, and so Ultra Parallax, we made it. I don't think any other song actually necessarily. Let me see. Let me just take a listen here. I think Next in Line, Projection, and We Made It are the only songs that actually have like clips of that synthesizer in it. But that's basically one of the first couple songs, like the first songs that I really use like technically like actual like instruments underneath, and then like the rest was still just like preset stuff from Logic. And honestly, like the Logic stuff sounds great. Like obviously, I made all these albums. I made so many albums just using the Logic stuff, and like even now, like a lot of the music I'm still writing like has kind of elements of both, where it's like some like analog or like I have a couple other synthesizers that I've bought in the last couple of years since then, just to like expand my sound, and like it's kind of a mix of both. So in terms of recording other things, I've never really recorded like percussion elements. I've never really recorded electric guitar or anything. I was thinking about maybe trying to ask my friends about, like, because one of my friends, like my friend who plays guitar, like kind of and is doing like jazz stuff. I would love to have him on songs and like record. I think that also part of me, like I've never really like opened up about all this music stuff with them. Like they all know that I do it. They know that like I'm in Summoning Salt videos and stuff, but I don't really talk to them a ton about it. And I think I maybe just like still kind of shy, and especially like one of my friends who does jazz guitar, he's like, he's a jazz musician. So I think in my mind, I still look at him as like, oh, and he might think this is all kind of basic, you know what I mean? I do like that it's kind of my own little thing that I do on the side, and I don't really tell them about it. And then like whenever it pops up, I'm like, oh yeah, I do this, but I try not to. Like I don't want to ever seem like braggadocious or like, because I know that like I could be like, oh, like I get this many streams, blah blah blah. But like really, it's more just for fun. It's not to like have an ego.
One thing that always like brings me into music, I'm super interested in is albums and album experience. Do you like to focus on like the feel or concept of an album, or are you more of like a song to song
singles guy?
Yeah.
I think generally I love album experiences. My favorite artist of all time, and this is probably so boring as a white guy, is the Beatles.
I love the Beatles. The Beatles are great.
Yeah. So love the Beatles. I kind of like discovered them by myself. Obviously they've always been huge, but like my parents were not overtly fans of them. And like when I was 13, 14, I discovered them because like one of my good friends really loved them, and then like I just like basically fell head first like into this deep dive like all throughout high school, where I was like obsessed with all their songs and so definitely like their later albums, basically I think like in my opinion kind of like Rubber Soul and On, like those are like pretty good album experiences where like each song I feel like it's pretty like I always was really like interested in how the track list was structured, and especially stuff like Abbey Road. I mean the second half of that is all like this one continuous.
Yeah.
But I think for me, like the only album, like looking now, I think like I definitely do put a lot of thought into sound, like into the track list and like how everything flows together. The only albums that I probably didn't really care as much about was 2020 Visions, because really to me that was just like, it was the first thing I ever put on streaming services, and it really is just like, this is everything in my back catalog for the most part that I like. And I'm just putting it out kind of as a, like, just a big, like, vomit onto streaming services where, like, there's not really any, like, I feel like the closing track and the opening track are, like, the ones where I was like, oh, I want these to be first and last, because they kind of have, like, these, like, sweet romantic sounds to them, and, like, they kind of work as opening, closing. But other than that, really, I'm looking at the songs now, and like it is just kind of a mishmash. I mean, there's 23 songs. Like I typically don't have nearly that many songs on an album. I think that was just again because it was like me trying to put everything up at once. And yeah, so that was probably like it's called 2020 Visions, but some of these songs are probably from even like 2018, 2019. And then the other album I probably didn't care quite as much about was probably Gradients, the one that I put out earlier this year. Again, it was like I like a lot of the songs on this album, but it was probably the most I ever had to struggle to finish an album just because it was like I like all these songs. I don't really feel a certain type of way about any of these songs except for a few. And even the album art is an old this album art. I mean, I don't know if you have it in front of you, but it's like the black square with like kind of the black to white, left to right squares repeating.
Yeah.
The whole thing with that one is that this is actually an old image I made when I was in a computer science class in university. And so like I kind of just chose the album name based on the picture. I think even if you go to my let me look here. If you go to my SoundCloud, I think there might even be old stuff like from like 2016, 2017 that use this image. So I knew at the time I was like this might even be a repeat offender for an image, but also like I didn't really care. I also just like the album. I do like the album Ingredients, and I like the cover art for it. But yeah, certainly not my most inspired choice. And the other thing too is that, so my albums, let's see here. So Breather, Ultra Parallax, Super Parallax, and then Regular Parallax, the album arts there are all, were all designed by my ex. And she is an incredible graphic designer. And she did really, really amazing stuff. And so when we broke up, obviously, it was like not the most friendly, so we did end up like I couldn't just reach out to her and like be like, "Can you design more album art for me?" So I really liked the Looking for Light cover because it actually. So like I mentioned before, I'm a nurse. I have a scrub cap that I would wear sometimes that has this pattern on it with this rabbit, and I really like the title, like Looking for Light, kind of having this like rabbit on there, kind of symbolizing that it's like this. It was kind of just me, like kind of me being like on my own, looking for some, like I was kind of in a dark place, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I don't want to get too deep into it, but yeah. And then Distance is a photo. This is actually a photo I took when I was in Scotland, I believe, in 2019. So an older photo, but I really like the album title and how the thing all comes together. But sorry, going back to, the album experience, I generally do care about how the tracks all flow together. Like, I still love Flashback from Regular Parallax, and I think also is a Loading Screen from Ultra Parallax. Those are probably my favorite opening tracks. And I do try to like make albums kind of end, like have like a nice conclusion track. And I do feel like sometimes I almost force it a little bit. Like even looking at Ultra Parallax here, like in the end, I do like that song, but it is a little bit like I am right. Like if you listen to it, kind of knowing that I am writing this to be the final song of like kind of the Parallax trilogy, it's pretty obvious. And I don't think that makes it a bad song, but I think it like sometimes can be a little like, okay, like clearly he was doing this for whatever reason, you know what I mean?
Kind of like how, going back to Beatles, like the last Abbey Road track is titled The End, and it doesn't really feel like a The End sort of track.
Right, exactly. Yeah, like it's pretty obvious that like it works as like a final track, and like it was written for that reason. And I mean, they're obviously much better, Paul McCartney, much better songwriter than me, so obviously it's going to sound a little more purposeful. But I mean, also let's be real, the final part of that album is actually the little Her Majesty interlude at the end with Paul singing, which I love.
True.
But yeah, so, and I do think like, and this is going to sound like I'm starting to do self-promo for whatever I release next, but I will say, definitely, like, I'm being a lot more purposeful with this current album that I'm writing, which is like, I think I only have 7 songs right now, kind of like almost ready, and I'm kind of like taking it slow as possible, and I'm like, I've never done this before, but in my notes app, I have like the track list as it currently stands laid out, and like I've actually reached out to 2 different graphic designers through Twitter, kind of just talking to them about like because I want to actually like pay someone to do some really good album art for me and like have it represent the album and how it sounds. So I'm trying to be a little more purposeful with that, and like I want this next album to really be more of an album experience than previous stuff. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So yeah,
I did also wonder, looking at the album art, other than the few that your ex made, most of it's like photography stuff. Did you take all these photos?
So that's a good question. So hold on, take a look back here. I just closed it off. That's my bad. I will pull it up here. So most of them are photos that I've taken. Like even just looking at. So if I look at album right now, like Greetings was something I made. Distance is a photo I took. Astral Exhibit is also a photo I took. That was at I think it was actually the museum. It was like the Glasgow Museum of Art, something like that. It was a when I was in Scotland, I took this photo in a museum, and I really like the light fixtures, and like I took this photo and just like turned down turned the shutter rate really really high so that it was like barely any light got in, and then it kind of has this cool like floating light image effect, which I really liked. And then so 2020 Visions picture I took. Darker Colors, also a picture I took. I believe that was in BC, which is like our most western province. It was like I was there. I think I was there.
That's a phenomenal cover art, in my opinion. That's one of my favorites. The Darker Colors.
Mountain.
Yeah.
And then Brighter Colors, also myself. This was like just a random picture of. I just really like this how the sky looked. It was like taken on my parents' street. Like this is like my neighbor's house at the bottom. Maybe one of the more low effort ones. And then Step by Step is interesting. So I guess 2021. So all the way back probably in 2020, like late 2020, after I'd been like Summoning Exalted used my music a few times in videos, I had a guy purchase a bunch of my music on Bandcamp, and it was this really really nice guy from who lives in the UK, and him and I are now essentially like, we're like pen pal friends. And so we talk like, we don't talk every day. We talk maybe like, we kind of exchange messages usually like once a month, once every couple months sometimes. And that's usually my fault. I'm usually just too busy to respond and I feel terrible. But him and I have like kind of become friends over the last couple of years, like just like talking about our lives. We don't even really talk about music much unless it's like music that we just like. And so we've kind of become buddies. And he sent me this photo. I can't remember why. I don't know if I asked him for it or if we were just like talking about photography, because like I also... Like, I'm not a skilled photographer by any means, but, like, I have a nice DSLR camera, which means that I can take photos, like, the Distance album art, which is, like, kind of that nice, like, focus on the house with, like, the shallow... You kind of have, like, the blurred greens in the front, and that, like, just stuff like that, which is, like, basically all the camera doing the work. I'm not, I never took any courses or anything. I've just done it enough that I have, like, basic skills. But he took this photo, and I just thought it really kind of fit the vibe of the album, and I asked him if I could use it. So I've had a few collaborators, I guess, technically, like, some of them are me, some of them are my ex, and one of them is this friend of mine from the UK. And I think that the next album, whenever it's ready, is going to either have... I'm talking to two guys. One is... Let me double check I get this right. One of them is from the UK, and the other one is from the Netherlands. So I'm kind of talking to both of them, and I'm going to like see... I'm going to basically like commission art from both of them, and what I might do is like the one I prefer more for this album I will use, and then I might use the other artist's commission either for the next album or for like single art or something. So yeah.
All right. I think that's about it. Is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners? You can self-promote or whatever.
Sure, yeah. So I mean, like, you can look me up on, obviously, like, I'm on Twitter, just under my name, Chris Doerksen. I'm on Bandcamp as well. I'm on SoundCloud. SoundCloud, I sometimes forget to put albums and stuff up. Like, I'm just realizing now that I didn't put any of Gradients on here. But, I mean, most people, I think, look nowadays on Bandcamp or, like, Spotify anyways. So... Yeah, I mean, I have all my albums available there. Bandcamp, it is like pay what you want, so you can download them all for free. If you really want to support me and pay a couple bucks, it's great, but no pressure at all. It's all for fun, anyways. Um, I'm on Twitter. Please feel free to message me if you ever want to use any music for a video. I mean, if you use my music in a video and like don't let me know, that's fine. But I love when people let me know just so I can check it out and like just love to see how it's incorporated and how people use it because it's always really interesting. Um, Currently, I'm working on a new album. I have been really, really interested in how it's going to turn out. I will say it's not quite as like dark as darker colors and that kind of stuff, but it is a little more experimental. Definitely not trying to make it for Summoning Salt videos. There's a few songs that like kind of started with that in mind, but a lot of them are like more like I'm using like my synthesizer a little more. I'm using some like kind of auxiliary percussion sounds with like looping and effects that I've never really done before. And so I am really excited to see how that turns out. And I don't know if any of it will be used on a Summoning Salt song, and I've kind of decided that's okay with me because I want to try to expand my palette and do it for myself and not just because I want to like get it in a video or whatever. And if I want to do that in the future, I can always go back to that, and I probably will at some point. So yeah, I'm gonna send you a song, Sam, that you can include on the end. It's not mastered or anything, so it's still kind of in the rough stages, but it's it's going to be one of the songs on the album, and I'm excited for people to listen to it. You can plug it wherever you want at the end or whatever.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Doerksen, for being here on another episode of Underscores. This podcast is produced and hosted by me, Sam Andrews. If you have questions, suggestions, or want to be on a future episode of Underscores, you can contact me at samandrews0808@outlook.com. Intro and outro samples Precarious Precipitation by Doerksen. You can listen to his music on Spotify or download it for free on Bandcamp. Thanks for listening.